guys, welcome back to my channel. Today I have with me my parents, Daniel and Lata. They are today going to do a video answering your questions on parenting. So the next question is, how can you be a friendly parent? Are you a parent or a friend, or are you both?
I think I'm both, I would say. The time that I used to spend with you, listening to you, what you're saying, and even about your friends and what they're talking, without being judgmental. So I think that helped for you also, that you started trusting me and you could share anything with me. So I've been a friend, but when you need to act like a parent, then I think that also needs to be balanced.
Becoming absolutely a friend would be taking the place of a friend, which you deserve. I didn't see myself as needing to actually compete with your friends. Some of the qualities that you see for somebody to fit as a friend, the question is whether you see some of those qualities residing within our hearts, for you to really feel able to relate in a way as if you are relating to a friend. So the acid test there is whether you have been given the level of comfort by your parent for you to be able to share and disclose, self-disclose. To have the comfort that you wouldn't really be judged. So that's where I believe the friendliness of a parent emerges. So if you had to ask me, so I'd rather be a parent and a friendly one, rather than be a substitution of a friend. Now, how does that get cultivated? Is obviously, again, recognizing your own worth, your own need for your own freedom, and being supportive, and making oneself available. So that comfort that you find in those qualities of what you see in your friends, you are also able to see. So that you are not at a kind of a loss, and you have to find that only in your friends. Now psychologically this is very important, because the child is dealing with a very complex world in spite of being so finite and limited. So I think the parent who has substantial role in the life of a child needs to be seen also from that angle, so that the child can turn to. So if a child doesn't find those qualities in a parent, the child actually can be in some corners where the child doesn't have any scope for relating and finds oneself bottled. And that isn't good, I feel. So if it is within the capacity, why not? Grant it.
Yeah, I think you raised me with that perfect balance of parent and friend, and being available but still giving the space. I knew you were there if I needed you. Coming from that, the next question is, how do you raise your children to be unselfish?
A lot of time what parents do is what they've been deprived of in their own childhood, they try to give as much as possible to their children. So if they are deprived of, say, a video game, or they were deprived of certain things, they want to give their children that. And but children are basically very simple. They are not complicated, we only make them complicated. They are all very creative. Because I remember just giving you a small, maybe a dough and a small plate, and you'll be hours on end sitting, and you'll be in your make-believe world, and you'll be doing something on your own. That is one aspect of it, basically giving them everything that you feel you were deprived of, and filling them with a lot of things. Then they tend to become like selfish. They want. Of course, we've already been talking about being models. So how are you as a person? What kind of values that you have are you willing to share out of your abundance? Whatever you have, are you willing to share with somebody who's less fortunate? So that also they see it, and then they emulate.
Parenting is in a way enabling growth. Now the components of growth is becoming selfless. So self-interest, if it is at the exclusion of selflessness, becomes harmful. It's a capacity to actually accommodate the other for the completeness of growth. So how is that then enabled? Is the question. So generally any educative model definitely comprises modeling. Then there could be elements of teaching. Then there is stories. And then there are those moments. So the whole process of the human evolving from self-interest to also accommodate other interests is enabled by these tools, if I may say, for that growth to happen. So it's not about the minimal, it's not about survival alone, it is not about just pleasure, it is not about entertainment, it's about the growth of the soul, that's the central part of a human. So in your own case, you would have had experience of all, because if selflessness is stated as a word and encouraged as a virtue without it being interpreted, then naturally there is a vagueness in the mind. It's almost like a foreign language, you don't understand. So what's the point of that leaving a person in a state of helplessness with words which represent even virtues, which are not really decoded? So the decoding takes place most effectively through the process of one of the more powerful ways is actually exemplifying, modeling. So you would have seen many instances where the other-centeredness is being depicted in our lives.
I remember we used to take you to these orphanage mission. You have been part of it, and you've sat together with those children, taught them craft, and whatever you used to learn, the school used to go and teach them. We have had some sessions outside for people, and you were there. You were small, but you were there giving out the feedback forms or whatever. And even Jethro was there, though he couldn't sit or participate, but then he was always there. He was there with us. So I think helps in the child to know the other side, the other people, and are able to then feel that it's not they, me, myself. It's everyone.
Even for that matter, if I remember, I chose instead of really being only in the company of a homogeneous category of people, say for instance, people with the same economic status. I chose deliberately a home where in the neighborhood, in the immediate house, there were people with other economic standards. So that your world gets widened and you begin to see them as part of you, rather than actually grow in a home where you are only confined to similar category and you consider the other of another situation as strange. So there's an education even by that choice. One of the things that we always encourage is reading. So when you read things which actually also enlarge your heart, rather than some mind teasing or a sense appealing types of stories alone, but when you read things that actually enlarge your capacity for values. So one of the things has been in our home, the amount of investment that we have made in books. And as things are changing into the modern world, whether it be electronic or it be literature in published form, but you need to get content to enlarge your own capacities, aiding to growth, not just for happiness. And then there are times where you are actually having a silent moment somewhere, unrelated, it is nothing to do with service to society, but then you may have a conversation or an incident happens and you do a narration where you are bringing that meaning back again into the conversation. And those are some moments that actually just throw themselves up into life. They are precious moments because the lessons that you learn, and it could be even sometimes when you are traveling together, maybe in your car there's nothing else to do. And so an occasion can come for a conversation on a subject. I remember very vividly, there are times, those are life-changing moments, where you have got the quietness to even think about something concentratedly, and what really you bring to that matter that you hear at that moment could be life-changing. So the teaching, the modeling, the stories, as well as the power of these moments, all are so important. So sometimes we are almost in a hurry to do many things, as if life is dependent upon how much you do. Point is, how much you be and become is so critical. Today's world, obviously, there are so many things can catch our attention. But what is that one thing that is most important? Could be an eye and an uncanny sense that parents should have and should have granted themselves those qualities even in the build-up of their lives. Because it's not so easy to suddenly pick it just because you are a child. You need to cultivate it over a period of time. So you can't be reckless in the way in which your life is getting shaped, because that's a preparation for even becoming a good father or a good mother. So it is in a way a challenging and a nice responsibility, because you are making lives. So that's an aspect of stewardship which attaches to parenthood as much as any other responsibility.
Yeah. It's something I often think about, that parenting is such a big responsibility because you are raising a child to become a part of society, and not just any part of society, but an important, contributive, kind, compassionate individual. And I think many people don't think about that. Sometimes the characteristics that you yourself need as a parent, you have not developed by that time. So then obviously maybe your child might pick up whatever characteristic you currently have. So a lot of conversation even amongst my friends is, what is it that we need to build in ourselves in order to be good parents in the future? And the last question, I think you answered it in a way, but how do you actually raise a child who is a contributing member of society?
What are you talking about when you are across the table, say a dining table? What are your conversations on? Because is your conversations on very superfluous things like a TV show or what's happening or a game or whatever it is? But is it on deeper stuff? Is it about what is happening in the world around us? What is the place that we have to make this place a better place? It all goes back to the parents' characteristics. What is their belief system? What is their value system? So that a child will again look at, will emulate, will talk about, maybe mull in their minds about, and then that becomes an impression on the child, and then they in turn become contributors.
Yeah, I think it goes to the fundamental question of what actually is one's life's purpose. So these were actually questions that were reverberating in my mind even when I grew up. Where I am really asking that to myself as to what this life's purpose is. Obviously it's in a way observable in the fashion in which it is actually being maintained as you see people around. And yet there is a missing element if it were only about survival. So the question that was an important question to me, I am imagining for every soul or a person born in this world, is a question, a deep question. And these are all obviously questions that man has been seeking answers for. So to be able to portray to the growing child that life is not about existence, it is about you being a player, making contribution. That teaching starts right from the beginning. You know, when you sit at your table, when you get up from your table, when you lie down, when you get up, when you go out, when you come in. What's the messaging? That's very important in the formation of a child. Because there are all kinds of messaging that goes on. There's a lot of emptiness that is around. There's a lot of aping that goes around, where people don't even think. The powers of mind is never used often. You just ape. You just want to be a clone. But that's not a human design, because everyone has got an individuality and everyone has got a distinct purpose. Everybody has got pre-given talents. So the journey of life in itself is not about primarily survival. Though survival is needed, but it's not something that you very, sheepishly accept as the dominant thing about life. And so when the messaging is, in spite of all the noise, if a child is able to clearly hear that there is a purpose, there is a uniqueness, there is a pre-giftedness, there is a contribution unique for the time in that world in which that child is from, whichever may be the place. And believe me, every bit of your experience, whether you are born in a rich home, whether you are born in a poor home, whether you are born in India, whether you are born in America, every bit of your experience has relevance. So enabling a child to be able to see it from that perspective in itself is just a huge contribution for the right development of a child. So you don't deplete the child of that capacity. For the child then to think, unless I had this experience, then only my life will become validated and will become relevant. Unless I had an identical experience of somebody else, only then my life can be as useful. Unless I was born with the same endowment, only then my life can be useful. No, the funda is the child has a contributive role for which the child is getting prepared through a combination of all what the child experiences, even pain, even suffering, even disappointments. How a child can respond to all of these is obviously a matter that we need to put before the child's mind. You don't know, but you have obviously the faith to believe that your life was created for a purpose. And it involves contribution. It involves the other. It is not for yourself. And so when you pack that child's journey with the vision, which is so large, the child grows with capacity to sustain through all kinds of circumstances, to be able to keep again and again interpreting and reinterpreting that there is something that is getting in a way weaved into the life through all the experience. You are putting the child on solid foundation. You are doing the enabling, and you are also enabling the child to hope for its life to get actualized and be rendered splendid. The child needs to connect with something, and the child has to be enabled to become a contributor by setting that as a part of the thinking process of a child. So that is powerfully transforming, not just of an individual. Understandably, the individual is the part of the society. It is obviously creating amazing potential for transformation of society. And so this is all by and large what we have in a way practiced in our responsibilities, I believe, and given you that environment.
Yeah, I think you created an environment for both of us in a way rich, not in terms of money, but in terms of experience, in terms of exposure. I think you even didn't protect us from things of the world, you let us see things. When I was younger, I read these Holocaust books, like there were stories of children who lived through the Holocaust, and even then at that young age, it immediately struck me that not all experiences are what I am going through. And then you kind of connect with, okay, then how do I help, or how do I make this world better? So if you had protected me and said you can't read a book like that, it's too dark or too depressing, then you think this world is your world. And then you tend to think only of yourself, your family, whatever you're exposed to. So I think for both of us, me and Jatra, you created a world where you exposed us to so many different things. So I thank you for joining this video.
And we are proud of both of you, Buddha and Jethro, for your contributions that you are making.
It vindicates
that you've done something right.
We have raised you the way we have raised you.
Yeah.
So may you be a blessing continually, because the world is desperately needful.
Yeah, that's so true.